Hello and welcome to our reflections for the 25th of March, which is 9 months to Christmas Day. There's something to encourage or to frighten you. I'm going to come on to that in a moment or two, but I want to set this reflection really in the context of the bulletin that I shared with the circuit yesterday, in which I disclosed that I was feeling under some strain of different expectations that people have within the circuit as to how our re-entry after lockdown would be different for us and for our churches from what we had been used to, especially with regards to the circuit plan. I want to say a little bit more about that because I want to assure you that I'm not cracking up under the strain of this. I'm just aware of the fact that it could be a bumpy ride ahead for all of us, as some people will be affected perhaps in a more costly way from whatever emerges from this than some others might be. So we've got to be loving and accepting of one another in our relief and also in our pain of how that might unfold. That's all that I wish to say really at the moment, as the thoughts are still evolving and the consultations need to happen in various places with various different people. What we find for today, March the 25th, is that we are saved in the lectionary from the roller coaster ride which the readings from Jeremiah have taken us on, in order to quickly visit Luke chapter 1, because today is the Feast of the Annunciation, which to those of us who aren't really with all these correct liturgical and theological terms refers to Mary being visited by the angel Gabriel and being told that dramatic change was on the way. You may remember that Luke 1 actually starts with an angelic visit to Zechariah, who was told that he would become the father of the person who we are familiar with as John the Baptist. And you may remember that when Zechariah sees the angel, we're told in verse 12 that he was terrified and overwhelmed with fear. And this contrasts rather sharply with the angel who greets Mary, because she's perplexed and she wonders what the greeting was that the angel was bringing to her. But the angels in both cases say, "Do not be afraid." And this seems to be a common message from God to the people who are in difficult or changing situations. You may have heard it a few times that the Bible apparently has "do not be afraid" said 366 times, which is once for every day of the year, including a leap year. Do not be afraid seems to be God's message to us whenever things they are changing. And I think the same's being said to us, whatever's awaiting us, because in comparison with the awesome changes that the angels announced, this is going to be quite small change. But what I want to tease out with you is what your approach to the anticipation of some changes would be. Whether it will be fear and silence and a certain cynicism, or whether it will be acceptance and trust. And I want to clarify really what I mean by referring to Luke chapter 1. Because when Zechariah is told that his wife will have a son, he asks in verse 18, how will I know that this is so? When Mary is told that she'll give birth to a son, she asks in verse 34, well, how can this be, since I am a virgin? Now, these two questions are subtly different. You see, Zechariah asks for a sign because he was sceptical about whether he could trust what he was being told. Mary is not questioning the authenticity of the message, but simply doesn't understand how it is possible. But when she hears the explanation, she replies, so be it. And she goes on to sing songs of praise to God, whilst poor old Zechariah is unable to speak until after his son is born. So I leave you with those two stories in Luke chapter 1 and encourage you to have the Mary response rather than the Zechariah response to anything and everything that is changing as we go forwards together. May God bless us, and may we know his presence every step of the way. God bless.